الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد خاتم الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. نويت تعليم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير وابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، وبعد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما، صلاة تفتح لنا أبواب الرضا وتيسير وتغلق بها أبواب الشر وتعسير. أنت مولانا فنعم مولى ونعم نصير، وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, it's been a while since we've actually done this. I think the last time we did this was about 2 years ago, where on the build up to Ramadan, we've actually gone through what is required for fasting, what is required for zakat. Because since then, I think we've just been doing it during our Sunday class. So zakat, inshallah, let's look at this. Now, first and foremost, we need to look at what zakat is. Now, zakat, we just treat it as we give money and we're done with it. It's not that. Giving your wealth is only one part. Your intention is more important. Your intention of why you're giving it, who you're giving it to, and what the outcome of it is going to be. Because zakat has two meanings. It has the meaning of purity, or it being extra, or it also has the meaning of growth. Now, when you make the correct intention, when you are giving the zakat, if you're not, squirming about giving it, you don't feel bad about giving it, you're giving it happily, that, look, my Lord has ordered me to give this. Now I'm going to give the zakat because I want to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want this to be a means of proximity for the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you do this, then you're not only departing from your wealth, you're purifying your wealth, and then at the same time, your wealth will grow as well. So charity is a means for us to increase our wealth. Charity will never decrease our wealth. But it's unfortunate that we don't understand this because it's not explained to us. Because we're so attached to the dunya, we think if we give our belongings to charity, then it's going to get less for us. Now, if we just put it in very simple terms, if somebody is a millionaire, someone is an absolute millionaire, they have, millions. Let's say they have 1 million. When it comes to them giving zakat, they only have to give £25,000 from their 1 million. And we put it into a different concept. Say you really like Snickers, Nuri, he really likes Snicker bars. He has 40 Snicker bars. And a poor person is there and saying, look, I'm really hungry. Can I have some? All he does from his 40 is take one and he gives it to the poor person. His zakat is done. He still has 39 to himself. Now, the reason why I gave you the two examples is because now a millionaire may look at that £25,000 and be like, that's £25,000 still. That's a lot of money. But when you look at in the terms of the ratio of Snicker bars, giving one to a poor person, or you have 40 individual grapes, giving one individual grape to a poor person, now it doesn't seem like a lot. And the reason is we've become so attached to money that money is actually ruling our lives now. But in the reality of it, this monetary system that we have, it has no value. It has no value at all. Yes, once upon a time it was backed by gold, but it's not anymore. And what they do now is they can just print more and more and more. So we need to be those people who rectify our intentions first and foremost when we are given that zakat. When we look at these things, so this is the meaning of when I gave the narration of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimallahu ta'ala yesterday, the great Egyptian Shafi'i Qadi. What did he say? He said, look, yes, I do have the wealth. I do have wealth. I do have good things, but it's nothing compared to what is promised to me in the hereafter. He's showing you that, look, what you have in your hand is not greater than what Allah is going to bestow upon you. And that's where we need to be. So if Allah gives you wealth, you should be prepared that if it goes tomorrow, it's not going to bother me. It's a tough pill to swallow, but that is the true believer. The true believer has the world in his left hand, but he has the deen. He has the love of Allah and his Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the right hand. This is why when you stand in prayer, what do? The left hand never goes over the right, ever. It's always the right hand that goes over the left. To tell you what, the deen should always grasp the dunya. If the dunya grasps the deen, then you're in trouble. But Allah's Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us that the deen always encompasses the left, which is the dunya. And that's the way that we need to consider our lives. Literally, it is the transfer of ownership of a portion of our wealth, of our belongings, 2.5% or 1/40th of the wealth, which is above the threshold amount. So you hold the threshold for 1 year. Now, when 1 year comes, you must give 2.5% to a particular poor Muslim person. Zakat must be given to a Muslim. Charity can be given to anybody. Charity can be given to a non-Muslim. But zakat must be given to a Muslim. And it must have the intention of zakat as well. So you can't just give it and then 2 weeks later say, yes, well, yeah, that's my zakat. No, that will be written down as sadaqah for you, charity, and it will go in your account as a good action, but it will not be zakat. Zakat needs to be specific with intention. Yes.
What's the best time to give it?
The best time to give it is when it's due upon you.
Like year.
It depends when it becomes mandatory upon you. So in terms of the time, we'll go into that, but just for now. The wealth must be transferred to the poor person. So you cannot give it to an administrator or something like that. You cannot give it to a charity who holds it on account for them. The zakat is not complete until the wealth has been transferred over to the poor person. That is when it is complete. So if you give it to a charity, loads of these charities, what they do, they just leave it in their bank account. And they think that we're going to transfer it over to the poor people when it's time. The zakat's not filled. It's not fulfilled. This is why you need to be very, very careful who you give your zakat to. Charity is all good. Charity is not fard. Charity is voluntary. But when it comes to zakat, you need to be extra careful who you give your zakat to. The rules. First and foremost, it is an obligation. It is fard to give zakat. To deny zakat is kufr. It takes you out of the folds of Islam. Why? Because it is a fard, it is proven from definitive texts, i.e. what? The mutawatir hadith and the Qur'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders us in Surah Baqarah, verse 277, pay the zakat. In the hadith, which can be found in the collection of Tirmidhi, Ibn Habban, and the version of Tabarani, pay the zakat on your wealth. And we have the ijma of the ummah on the matter as well, that zakat is fard. A clear example is, as soon as the Prophet ﷺ leaves this physical world, those weak Muslims at the time, or those who just accepted Islam, they decided that they're not going to pay the zakat. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu an, he starts fighting them. That's when the wars start. Because Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, now somebody may say, well, why is he starting wars against Muslims? If he hadn't done that, the foundations of Islam would have completely been rocked. So he had to do that to establish the point that what the Prophet ﷺ has laid down for us, that is still incumbent upon us to follow. And if you do not, then you become of those people who are out of the folds of Islam. Now you have two ways of this. You have those people who will just acknowledge that, yes, look, we have to give zakat, but then they're tight, they're stingy, they don't want to give it. They're still Muslim. They're still Muslim. And these people, you have to encourage them, look, brother, you have to give zakat. Sister, you have to give zakat. You don't have a choice in the matter. It's due upon you. You have to give it. But then you have those people who just say, no, man, there is no such thing as zakat. I don't have to give zakat. Now for them, they exit the folds of Islam. They exit the folds of Islam. So for them, what they have to do now is you have to guide them. You have to say, look, brother, sister, it is an obligation upon you to give it. This is the reason why. Now, if they fight you, they argue with you and stuff like that, eventually you'll be able to tell whether these people, you can get through to them or not. And if you cannot get through to them, then you leave them. Because otherwise, it's going to reverse into the opposite, where it's just going to be a tit for tat. And that's not what da'wah is. Okay, you had a question?
So, how would you define poor? Could I go, let's say if I'm going during Roses, Pakistan, that's some poor people there, they've got thousands.
Okay, so the question is, how do you establish who a poor person is? Number one misconception that we have is if somebody has a house, they're not poor. That's completely incorrect. Because there are people in this city of Nottingham, and wherever you guys are watching from, in your own vicinities, there are poor people. There are people who are struggling, but they have a house. The house may be a council house. They might be renting, right? They may have gotten themselves into a mortgage. But despite that, they still are eligible for zakat. Now, how do you become eligible for zakat? They are those people who do not meet the threshold. And what the threshold is, we'll get to that in a minute. Now, for what the good thing for us would be is that everybody, look, right about now, everybody wants to send their wealth to Palestine. And there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this at all. But what about the people in your own community who are suffering? What about the people, the brother just mentioned Pakistan. Everybody wants to send it to Pakistan. But what about the Muslims in Sierra Leone? What about the Muslims in Sudan? What about the Muslims in Kashmir? What about those in India? Syria, in Burma, in China. There's Muslims everywhere. There's Muslims, first and foremost, you need to look about the Muslims here. This is why, under the guidance of our teacher, Sheikh Abu Jafar, for the last, 10 odd years, and Sheikh's been doing it for longer, for I think almost like 20 years now, we've joined up with him. And every year we give zakat on the 27th of Ramadan. We go out. Straight after Dhuhr, we go out. We buy a load of food. We put it into boxes divided upon the families. First, it started out, I remember the first year I did it, there was about 5 families. Now it's reached to about 13 families. The highest we've ever had was 16 families. Food parcels in this city to keep them going for a couple of months, keep them going for Eid. And then whatever money's left over that people have donated is all divided, put into envelopes and given to each of the families. And anybody can do that in any city. And the question is about how do you identify who they are? You can tell. Somebody's struggling, you can tell. We just need to get out of our own bubble and stop worrying only about ourselves and start worrying about other Muslims as well. So this is how you identify those people who are eligible for zakat.
Lazy in this country because you've got the opportunity to earn money in this country. I deny that.
Yeah.
So how do you define that they're not just lazy opposed to they're genuinely needing zakat?
Like I said, you can tell because the people that we give it to, some of them they're single mothers, they're either widowed, they've been divorced, they've got kids, right? There's other like brothers, they're working like 2-3 jobs. They were just working hard, like takeaways, deliveries, and stuff like that. But you're still struggling because they've got large families. So it's all about, and the biggest thing is, never look at another Muslim based upon yourself. Never look at them based upon yourself. Allah may have given you blessings. Allah may have given you a mind. Allah may have given you certain qualities. But this doesn't mean that everybody else has them. Other people, they may have disabilities. They may have, learning difficulties. They might not be able to do it. They may not be able to even speak the language fully. So now they're on the back foot. And the good thing about these people, what you'll notice is, whenever we try to give them zakat, whenever we turn up on the door on the 27th of Ramadan, they just shake their head, man, like, come on, why are you doing this? Because they don't want it. Because they're proud, they don't want to be known as, we're eligible for zakat. They don't want a handout. So if you look closely, you'll be able to find them. Look closely. It's fard, an obligation to give zakat upon every sane Muslim. So anybody who's insane, they don't have to give it. They must be free. So a slave, for example, does not have to give it. They must be mature. So children do not give zakat. They must be Muslim because it is an act of worship. So, you can't go to Dave or Charlie down the street and say, you got a few Lambos parked outside your house. I'm guessing you're quite rich. Now you need to give 2.5% of your wealth to the poor. No, that's not how it works. You understand? Good morning. Now, what is being mature? Mature here is reaching puberty. It's bulugh. Now, the minimum is 9 years old for sisters, 12 years old for brothers. This is the minimum age. And 15 years old is the latest. If by 15 years old, the signs of maturity have not come upon the child, whether they are a boy or a girl, now they will be classed as being a mature adult now. What are the signs? The signs is either a wet dream, they start menstruation, emitting seminal fluid, or with the girl, she gets pregnant. All of these are signs of them attaining maturity. If there is any wet dream or emitting of seminal fluid or period-like substance before the age of 9 for girls, before the age of 12 for boys, it will be ignored. There will still be children because it can only happen, the minimum age is 9 for girls and 12 for boys. The condition is you must possess the nisab value, and we will discuss what the nisab is. The nisab is the threshold. We'll come to that in a minute. For a complete year, as this is the necessary duration for wealth to grow. It doesn't matter if it fluctuates in between, as rates usually vary during the seasons. But what matters is what is there in the beginning and what is there at the end. If you meet the nisab threshold in the beginning of the year, so let's say for argument's sake, in Muharram, right? In Muharram, you're there. You have your nisab amount, you've reached it. Now, at the end of the year, you have the nisab amount as well. Zakat, and then you're at Dhul Hijjah, you've done it, you've looked at it now, and you have the nisab amount again. But in between, it fluctuates. You've gone below the nisab amount. But then you come down, you keep going, and then at the end of the year, you're back up again. Now, because at the end of the year, you still meet the nisab, the threshold amount, now you must give the zakat. But at the end of the year, if you are still below the threshold amount, now there's no zakat upon you because you have to hold it for a year. And the hadith is a collection of Abu Dawood and Daraqutni. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "There's no zakat on wealth until the year has passed over it." Now the exemptions. There's no zakat upon the person whose entire wealth is encompassed by debt. So now your debt outweighs what you have in terms of your wealth. But any wealth which exceeds your debt, on that you must give the zakat if it meets the threshold. If people own a long-term debt, long-term debts are those debts which you can pay, you don't have to give within the year. Anything you have to give within the year, this is a short-term debt. Short-term debts, you can remove the entirety of it. Long-term debts, which don't have to be repaid within the year, they can be repaid. Like, for example, people have mortgages, have credit cards or whatever, and they say, yeah, I'm just going to give it off in about 25 years, whatever, right? That itself cannot be deducted. With those, you only deduct the next payment that is upcoming. Do you get the point? Right? So you don't deduct the entirety of it. But when it comes to a short-term debt, that which has to be repaid within a year, so you borrow some money from your friend, 10 grand, and you say, listen, I'm going to give it you back by this date, and it's within the year. Now that 10 grand, you can withdraw it. You can deduct it from the amount that you have to give. The intention, you must have it either when you are paying the zakat or at the point where you are separating your wealth out. So say, for example, you have, £1,000 in front of you, and then you just take 2.5% out of that and you move it to the side and you just leave it there. And you've already made the intention, right? This money that I've taken out here, when my zakat day comes, I'm going to use this for my zakat. Now, your zakat day comes, a few weeks later, you take it out from there, that pile, which was that you've already designated, and you give that away. You've already made the intention. When you are giving it, you already know this was separated out to give zakat. So you've already got the intention. Anything which you do not give with the intention of zakat will just be written down as charity for you. Okay? If someone gives all of his wealth away in charity without the intention of zakat, then he's forgiven off the obligation, right? Because now he doesn't have any wealth. A poor person does not need to know it is zakat that what you are giving him. You can just say to the poor person that, look, I'm giving to you, just a little gift. Or you can say, I'm borrowing you some money. And then when they try to repay you back, no, that's just a gift. That's a gift. But as long as you know that what you are giving is zakat, this is what is sufficient. Now, the nisab. What is the nisab? The nisab is the threshold amount that if you reach this amount, either in gold or silver or the monetary value, now zakat becomes due upon you, minus those debts and stuff which I've already spoken about. So gold works out to 20 mithqals, right? And that is approximately 87 grams of gold. Now, 87 grams of gold, if we looking at the gold price today, it's about £52.93 per gram. So that gives you the nisab threshold today, which is the 2nd of March, 2024. So anybody who watching this later, every year, you need to work out the nisab amount, because every year it goes higher, because gold price always rises. £4,630.32. That is today's nisab amount. So for example, if you own 87 grams, then you have to give £115.76, rounded off to 176 pence. Otherwise, it's 758p. So rounded off, £115.76. So just imagine that to yourself now. You've got £4,630, and the only amount that you have to give in zakat is £115.76. It's nothing really. When you work towards silver, so you have, with the Hanafis, you have two values for the threshold. You have gold, and then you have silver that you can give according to. Now, the silver is 0.3 grams of silver that you have to give it on. And that works out to, mine's gone blank. I think it was 612.3 grams. Brian, can you just double check that for me? Silver nisab, according to the Hanafis, I think it works out to about 612.36 grams of silver. That is what you have to give. Nisab, that is your threshold. Now, the silver price today is 0.59 per gram of silver, I believe it is. So that works out to approximately £361.29. So if you reach £361.29, then you must give, 612.36 grams is the nisab amount for silver, right? So gold is 87 grams and 612.36 grams of silver. Can you just double check? I'm sure it is. The silver price today is 0.59 when I checked in the morning. It does fluctuate, so you need to check it at the time that you're giving it, and maybe give a little bit more because based upon the fluctuation. So if you own 612.36 grams of silver, and you have that the monetary value, which is £361.29, the zakat that you have to give on that is only £6.83. Absolutely nothing. But then we have people trying to get out of it, trying to get out of it. You're trying to get out of it of £1 or 50p is not actually going to be much for you, but it can make a world of difference for the poor person. Yeah. So the silver price today is 0.59. Jazakallah khairan and Adi. If currency is owned to this amount, then the zakat due, e.g., if you own £3,000, then £75 you have to give. If you own £1 million, the zakat is 25,000. Now, for us, 25,000 is a lot, but for a millionaire, 25,000 is not even going to, be like off to him. So we need to stop being like this. Now, how to calculate? You deduct any immediate necessities of living or immediate debt payments. So if you got any direct bills which are due, you withdraw that. You deduct that. Sorry, any immediate debt payments, you deduct that as well. Now, when it comes to working it out, you have two ways. Now, the easy way is the Sahibain view. These two students of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam al-Shaybani and Qadi Abu Yusuf. They just follow the position with the hadith, which is whatever is in excess of 200 dirhams is subjected to the prescribed rate. Hadith in the collection of Abu Dawood. So anything over the nisab, you pay 2.5% tax on that, the zakat tax. Now, Imam Abu Hanifa, he has a different way. Now, this is more for those who are interested in it. We normally all just work through 2.5% because it's a lot easier. But just for anyone who's interested, Imam Abu Hanifa's method is a bit tricky. So what he says is, for example, you have 87 grams, which is £4,630 and 32p. This is the threshold. Now you've reached this amount, you give 2.5% off that amount. Now, for every 17.4 grams after this, so £920 and 99p after this, you give 0.435 grams, which is 23.3p. You don't give anything on that which is less than 17.4 grams. So now for those people who want to pay less, they can use this. It's not a loophole because Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't just do things willy-nilly. What he's doing it is on the hadith related by Amr ibn Hazm, where the Prophet ﷺ said that there is no sadaqah on what is less than 40. So that's what he is acting upon. Now here's Abu Hanifa's view, if you translate that to silver, for anything which reaches 612.36 grams, so £361 and 29p, you give 2.5%. And then on anything which is additional of 140 grams, you pay £82 and 60p. Sorry, for every £82.60 after that, you give 3.5 grams, which is £2 and 7p. So you don't give anything less than, on anything less than 140 grams. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can rewatch it and just try and make notes according to what you guys want to learn. Now, I've just given you two calculations. So remember, just go for the easier one, just do 2.5%. But that was just for the students of knowledge, if you want to know about the difference of the imams and how they arrived there. Now, what do you give to? Do you give according to gold or do you give according to silver? What the principle with zakat is, you always work in accordance to what is best for the poor. Now, if we work according to gold, most people have not got £4,630 in their savings. But more people will have about £361.29. So what we say is work according to silver when you are given zakat. And in terms of who you are giving it to, in terms of the poor, then you might want to work according to gold. So if, say, for example, somebody does not have the gold amount in his bank account, but he does have £361.29 either in cash or in his bank account, he's only given £6.83 to the poor, and the zakat is done. So you work according to what is for the poor, because if everybody works according to the gold, then it may just be the case that the poor people don't receive zakat, because most people don't receive it, are not eligible to give it. Yes.
Could you change it like year after year? It's like 1 year you give it in gold and silver, the other year. Or do you just stick to one?
You should stick to one instead of fluctuating between the two, because if you change it every year, then basically, what you're really doing is you're just basing it upon your whims and your desires. Yeah. So one year you might think, I feel like giving it to silver, and then you give according to that. Another way, I feel like giving it to gold. Let me give it according to that. So you're just doing it to, fuel your own self.
If like if you've got enough money to give in gold 1 year.
The amount that you give, you're talking about that. Okay, so the amount you give, that's different. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is the threshold. Yeah. So the threshold, so to establish whether you want to give it or not. Right? So we're not talking about the amount that you're giving. The amount you give is going to be 2.5% either way. This is talking about the threshold, which makes you eligible to give it or not. Obligated even to give it or not. Zishan, good question.
My question was on, say you got assets that are volatile in price, for example, stocks, cryptos and stuff. Say I'm making a payment for zakat now. Once I made it, price has gone up by like £1,000 or something. Do I have to make another payment to make up for that, or is it from the moment I pay the payment, that's my zakat fulfilled?
Okay, so first and foremost, when it comes to volatility of stocks, assets, crypto, etc., first of all, what you need to know is you need to know your exact zakat date. You need to know your exact. So that's the first thing you need to work out. Once you got your zakat date, you can give it earlier, but then any fluctuations, like where it goes higher, then what you need to do there is you need to pay the difference. Right? So say, for example, if it's gone up by £1,000, then on that £1,000, when your zakat day comes, in that meantime, whatever you've already given. So say, for example, you've given it on the 10th, but your zakat date was actually on the 17th. Now, between the 10th and the 17th, it's gone up by £1,000. On the 17th, you need to give that difference of 2.5% on that £1,000 increase, right? But anything that goes up after the 17th, then for that, you will say that goes into the account of the following year. Yeah. But one thing you will find is, and I've noticed this, right? It's, whenever it comes to zakat, when it comes to like around about the Ramadan time, stocks and crypto, they shoot up. I've noticed this over the years. Right? Clear example right now, crypto is booming, right? Crypto is booming. If you want to find a selling point, use Ramadan as your base hold, because I'm telling you, straight after Ramadan, it's going to drop. Once you've given your zakat, it's going to drop. Why? Because most people use Ramadan as a indicator as when they're going to give zakat. Whether it's their zakat due day or not, their zakat due date might be after Ramadan, or it might have been before, but they just use Ramadan to be the baseline, and they're just working on that. But I don't know, maybe this is just the decree of Allah, so we give more to the poor, right? But I've noticed that it does happen. Even right now that we're talking, crypto market's booming, Nvidia and that is booming. But straight after Ramadan, you're going to look, it's going to go down. It's going to go down again.
In terms of my deadline date, I think I may have been doing something wrong. So I've always been giving it around about the middle of Ramadan. So
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's not always a 12-month period because the Ramadan comes back.
It's a but that's because you're working according to the Gregorian calendar. You got to work it according to the Islamic calendar.
So if I give it middle of Ramadan every year, then I'm good.
Yeah. Now you've established that as your zakat due date. But it may just be that your actual zakat due date was before or after. But if you haven't established that because you didn't keep a note on it, it's better for you to establish this middle point of Ramadan rather than not establish something at all. Yeah.
How do you know that day that you meant to be? What you meant to keep the same day every year?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you do is, say for example, like you've got £5 now. What you should actually do is, okay, now I've got £5. That's over the nisab amount now, right? For silver and gold. What you should actually do now is you should look at, okay, what's the Islamic date? Okay, this Islamic date, you write it down. Now, the following year, you pick up that Islamic date again. You set a reminder in your phone, right? And when that Islamic date comes, you need to look at yourself now, okay, am I still above this the threshold? If I am above the threshold, now I have to give zakat. Because now this is your zakat date. But now if it's below the threshold, then there's no zakat due upon you. Now there's a reset of a year of when you actually get £5,000 or whatever again. Then that will restart the year again. From that point, you get that wealth. Does that make sense? Yeah. But unfortunately, people don't do that because we don't really care. We don't really care about it. Now, if we had to pay a debt to a company, we have to pay a debt to our banks and whatever, we have to file our taxes. Everyone's got it all written out. There's reminders in the phones and everything because, we've got penalties, we've got repercussions and stuff like that. But when it comes to zakat, no one's interested, right? But so it's better for you to try and work out, okay, when did I get the money? If you can't do that, then just do what Zishan did, just choose the middle of Ramadan. And then every time the middle of Ramadan comes, if you have that amount which is higher than your threshold, then you just go ahead with it. So what we do is, because we distribute it on the 27th of Ramadan, my zakat date is normally the 27th of Ramadan, right? Because I worked it out, I made sure it was according to that, so it's an easy reminder for me. But brothers who are, theirs is after or theirs is before, then what they do is disliked, but they delay it and just give it on the 27th. Those whose zakat day comes after, they give it on the 27th, and then any fluctuations that they have, then when their zakat day comes, then they give that fluctuation somewhere else. Right? So that's just the way. Yes.
You know me.
I know you.
Yeah. I can't remember what days I've given the last couple of years.
Okay. Try and establish a base date. If you can't, just establish a base date from this Ramadan. Because Ramadan is easy a month to work around. And then you just make dua to Allah. If there's any fluctuations or something, then please forgive me. And in that circumstance, you may just want to give a little extra. So for example, like, £40-50 extra, just to make up for any fluctuations of the days. Yes.
What if you miss your base date? Is there a penalty for that?
No. If you miss your zakat due date, then your zakat is due upon you for the entire time that you live. So you need to pay it as soon as you can.
Say like, for example, you give it 15th of Ramadan every year. For 1 year you forget. But let's say 25th of Ramadan, you've remembered.
Then you give it straight away.
Straight away.
Yeah, you give it straight away. If you can't, then you need to wait until you get the money, and then you pay it back in retrospect. Because now that's a debt upon you.
Yeah.
You get it? That's a debt. So you have to repay that debt. It's like your prayer. If you missed your prayer, you knew it was due upon you, but you missed it, you forgot about it. You make it up as soon as you remember. And if you don't make it up, it's a debt upon you until you make it up. Random time to have an alarm on. Yes.
Can you give it every month, like on a monthly basis?
What, 2.5% every month?
Well, personally, I give 5% of what I earn that month. So it's based on your assets as well. So let's say I own 2 houses.
Okay.
I live in one of them. So
Okay, so that's what we're moving on to now. That's actually what we're moving on to now. The types of wealth that is due upon. Okay, so the question first of all is, can you give it monthly? For some people who own large amounts of wealth, they might want to do that. So if you give it monthly, say for example, you estimate, okay, by the end of the year, I expect my wealth to be this amount, right? Say for example, I expect it to be £1 million. Okay, so if I expect it to be on my zakat due date, £1 million, I've got to give £25,000. So now that £25,000, you can give it monthly to the poor. You can discharge it. However, when your zakat due date comes, you have more than £1 million. Now that fluctuation, the difference between 1 million and say, for example, 1,010,000, that 10,000 now on your actual due date, you have to give 2.5% on just that 10,000 extra. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but for me personally, I give a minimum 5% of what I've earned a month every month.
But if you're doing that, you need to make sure that what you're giving is with the intention of zakat.
Yeah.
You have to make intention. I'm giving it as zakat, and you have to make sure it's getting to the poor.
Gambia, it goes straight to Gambia.
That's fine. If they're poor people and it's actually going to them. So we're going to speak about who you cannot give it to. And who you cannot give it to is a very big deal, because there are many people who come and try and take your zakat when they're not entitled to it at all. And these people, the Prophet ﷺ collection of Bukhari said that the zakat that they unlawfully take, it will be held on their necks on the day of Qiyamah. It will be held on their necks. So, but we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so what do you give zakat on? You give it on any gold that you own or any silver that you own. You can either give gold itself, right? So you can give, say for example, you've got £4,500 of gold. You can either take 2.5% out of that as gold and give gold, or you got silver. You can take 2.5% out of that and give that in as zakat, or you can give the monetary value. So it'll be easy for you to give the monetary value because people don't want to depart from the gold and silver, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you pay the zakat. Merchandise of trade. So, for example, if you're a car trader, you have a whole stock of about 10, 15 cars that you are going to sell. Now, you will take the market value of each of those cars that you are selling, and then the market value, you tally it up. Now, you divide the percentage between you and your partners. If you are 1, 2, 3, or if you just own it yourself, then whatever fraction comes to you, now that amount, you give 2.5% on that, minus any long-term debts, expenses, etc., that you need to pay immediately. If you are, I don't know, a dessert salesman, now if you got a dessert shop, now with that, you will look at all the stock that you have. I have these ice creams, I have these chocolates, all of these things. Okay, how much do I make from each box of ice cream? How much do I make? Like, what is the market value of this? So you don't look at the box itself, you look at what's going to come from it. You tally that up, all of it with the chocolates and stuff, 2.5%. Doesn't matter. That's not matter. Because that's not, it's on your merchandise of trade, your trade assets. But say for example, let's say you've got houses on rent. You're a property developer, you rent properties and stuff. On the actual properties themselves, you don't pay anything. But the income that comes from those properties, you pay 2.5% on those. As long as that's in your account at the time of your nisab, your zakat due date. When the time of your zakat due date, if you've taken all of that rental income from the year and you've gone, I don't know, just bought another house or just bought another car, now you have zero in your account, there's no zakat due upon you, right? And your zakat is only due upon your gold and silver. So if you have like diamonds, you have rubies, you have pearls, you have all of these different things. Now for that, there is no zakat due upon those. It's only on gold, it's only on silver. So we only give on those things which the Prophet ﷺ told us to give it on. Now, if somebody wants to give more, they can give as much as they want. But the minimum is what is being described by the Prophet ﷺ. Yes.
The value of the property
because you're renting out the property. Now, if you were a property developer, where you buy properties, you buy land to sell it on and all of this kind of stuff, now you would take it on the market value, because now that is a merchandise of trade for you. You get it? But if you just have houses which you just using for the rental income, that's a completely different story.
It's equivalent to the all taxable income of the UK government tax you.
Pretty much.
Same as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've read also that you're not supposed to hoard wealth.
No.
Is that not a thing?
No. What they say there is exactly what I was speaking about in the beginning, right? When it's about speaking about hoarding wealth, it's talking about don't hoard it in your heart. Don't hoard it in your heart. You understand? So this is what I was speaking about. Keep your right hand over your left. Never let the left hand overtake the right. Because the ones who overtake the left over the right, they're those people who try to find loopholes to get out of giving zakat. Right? But those people who keep the right hand over the left, they're always looking for reasons to give charity. You know, who can I give charity to? Okay, is anybody in need? Let me borrow them some money. You know, you may give charity to somebody who may need it, but the one who is in need of a loan, he's actually in need, and you're helping that person out. What else do you give it on? You give it on your savings. You give it on any savings that you have in your bank accounts. When it comes to your shares, if you are buying and selling shares, then you give it on that. Otherwise, if you're just holding them long term because you're getting dividends from them, then you pay it on the dividends. If you buy and sell crypto, then you pay it on the crypto. Bitcoin, rental income, all of these, you will need to pay it on them. Yes.
So let's say you took all your rental income through the year.
Uh-huh.
Just before the start date, you said, oh, I'm just going to put this in the house. Is that not seen as wrong to like put that into the house so you don't have to pay his car?
Why? Why would it be wrong?
You kind of like
You need to avoid
you get things about.
Obviously, if you take all that rental income to buy a house now, obviously you don't make the intention that, yeah, I'm doing this to escape paying zakat, because that would just be ludicrous, right? Now, for that, you have two aspects. You have the legal aspect, which legally is permissible for you to do, but then you have the spiritual aspect. Now it's like, you're spiritually diseased. Why are you making this intention? But if you genuinely have taken it all and you say, oh, what, there's a cheap house one, I'm going to buy that. And you go and buy it, and now your zakat date's due, you're allowed. There's nothing wrong with that.
I need a holiday.
So what?
I spend the money on £5 holiday.
Right? That's your choice. That's your wealth. What you guys right now, what you getting, and this is what people do. They get confused between what is legally allowed and what you are allowed to do, and then what is spiritually that you can be doing. Now, legally, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to take your money, you want to go on a holiday, you go and do that. That's your money. You're allowed to do it. You want to buy a car, go ahead, go and do it. But when it comes to the spiritual side of the things, and somebody's like in need, and you know somebody's in need, then you should try to give them money instead. Right? So that's what you are allowed to do and what you can be doing. Right? So what you can be doing, you can always do something more. You know, we could, just sell everything, sell absolutely everything. Just go and live in a tent, in a marquee in the desert, right? And then all of our wealth go and donate it to charity. Why doesn't anybody do that? Why hasn't anybody got a problem with that? Oh no, well, we can't do that. Okay, so why have you got a problem with somebody else who's doing X, Y, and Z? Well, they're allowed to do that as well. You don't expect yourself to go and do it, but then other people, you point fingers at them. But 2.5% is not a large amount. So spiritually speaking, you should always try to give what you can, right? Even if it's not due upon you zakat, you should at least give some charity. Like, for example, brothers are always putting posts on about, food parcels. How much is a food parcel? £40? About £40, what's name? The food parcels, Pakistan and whatnot.
Between 25 to 40.
25 to £40. You're not going to, brothers spend, even if zakat's not due upon them, you know, they spend that on takeaway, spend that on shisha. Trying to tell me you can't do that for the poor, right? Any other questions on that? Now, yes.
It's a different question. So, in terms of people avoiding tax, not tax, sorry, Zakat.
Yeah.
So I was about
Crack on.
I was having a conversation with my brother, and what he did is a few years ago he sold all of his gold, which was a considerable amount in the tens of thousands, and invested it all in actual diamonds instead. So he has diamonds. He says there's no zakat on that.
Correct.
He did that with the intention of avoiding zakat. Is he simple for that?
Is he sinful because he sold all of his gold to buy diamonds?
Yeah.
Now, legally, okay, to avoid the zakat. Okay, legally, he's not done anything wrong. Spiritually, he's tried to mess with the system, right? So now he can deceive people, and you don't know if you lot saw the post yesterday. You can deceive creation, but you can't deceive the creator. Right? So now, whether that's a sin or not, he can take. He's going to be that intention. He's going to be asked by Allah. It was quite simple for him to, you know, just do it and not make an intention that I want to get out of zakat. He could have just made the intention that, look, diamonds, you know, may be worth more one day. So I just want to invest in diamonds instead. But to specifically do it is just, I want to come out of paying my zakat. That's a ludicrous intention to have. And yeah, it's just like, no, because with the gold, then he would legally be thing as well. Yeah. Spiritually speaking, yeah, you're right. But I'll give you an example. Like one of the imams, he mentioned a story once. He said that there was a guy that he studied with, and he was on the rank of a scholar, and he was an imam as well, and he had all of his wealth, and his zakat date was due the following day, and he said to his friend, who was also an imam, that, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer all my wealth to you tonight, and then the day after tomorrow, you just transfer it back to me. So all what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say, I gift all of my wealth to you. And then the day after tomorrow, all you do is you just say, I gift it all back to you.
He's going to pay.
Yeah. So then his friend goes, no, because his zakat date wasn't due. His zakat. So he goes, why would I do that? He said, so I don't have to give the zakat. So he looked at him and said, yeah, I'm not comfortable with that, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to report you to our teacher. Right? So he went and actually reported him to their teacher. And that teacher, who gave him the stamp of approval to start conveying knowledge and helping people and stuff, he stripped him off his ijazah, his license to transmit. He said, you're not worthy of it. You don't uphold the rule of Allah. How can you uphold the position of helping people to uphold the rule of Allah? Stripped him off it. And that's how these people should be treated. Because they're taking the right of the poor. That's like you see a poor person, you know, poor, the ripped clothes, everything, just sat on the floor, eating a loaf of bread, and you just walk past, yoink, take that loaf of bread off them, shake it off, carry on walking, start eating it yourself. That person, poor person, just on the floor. When you don't even need it. You've got like loaves of breads in your house. That's to put it into actual perspective for you. Now, when it comes to money which is lent, debts, somebody who borrows you money, you don't have to give zakat on that because it's not your money. You have to give it back to somebody else. So now there's no zakat for you to pay on that. Now, when it comes to you lending somebody else money, so say, for example, I lend Nouri £10,000. I'm never going to see that again because Nouri's never going to give it back. But Nouri says, you know, I'll give you back. I'll give you back. Now, there's two views on this. In Al-Hidayah, Imam Marginani, one of the great Hanafi scholars, he said, look, if a person disputes that they owe you the money, but then evidence is produced to show that he does owe you, then you don't have to pay for the past because this is an issue of absent wealth. It is called dimar, which is a bad debt, because there is no zakat on a bad debt, i.e. debts which cannot be recovered. However, once it is recovered, once it is proven that he does owe you and he gives it you back, now after a year passes, you have to give zakat upon that. But in a normal circumstance, when you borrow somebody money, what do you do in that case? Now, you pay. This is known as a good debt. Now, you have two options on this. You have the option to say, okay, yeah, that is still my money. I'm going to get it back one day. So I'm going to add it into my zakat calculation. So you add it into your zakat calculation and you give it every year on that as well. The second thing that you can do is you don't give it every year, but once you receive it back, so for example, I know Nuri is not going to ever give it me back. So instead of paying it every year, I say, okay, when Nuri gives it me back, then I'll pay it. And now miraculously, 10 years later, Nuri gives me that 10,000 back. I've got that 10,000 back now. Now, that 10,000, I would have to pay 2.5% of that for the previous 10 years that Nuri's had it. So you pay it back in retrospect. However, if I thought, no, Nuri will give it me back, and I just pay it every year whilst he's got it, and then 10 years later, he gives it me back, now I don't have to give anything in retrospect because I've already been given it in each of those years.
Probably just separate, put to the side.
Yes, but yeah, that's what I mean. It's up to you. You can either include it within your calculations, or you can just wait until you get it back. Right? We get that, right? Zakat is fun. Zakat is fun. It's not due upon your residential housing, what you live in. It's not due upon your clothes, your household assets, gems, diamonds, because these are a primary need. Even if you have it in excess, you have one brother asked me last year, my mate's got 3 cars, and they're all supercars. He's got a Ferrari, he's got a Lambo, and he's got a Porsche. Does he have to give zakat on them? No. But why? That's not fair. What do you mean it's not fair? They're his cars. They're his modes of transport. And the Prophet ﷺ never ordered us, Allah never ordered us to give it on modes of transport. So you don't give zakat on it. If you change your mind on merchandise or land for trade, so you bought it, say for example, Sad, he's got a nice G63, he looks at it, he's bought it for sale, but now he's looked at it and he's saying, you know what, I like this, I'm going to keep it for myself. Now with that one, he deducts that from his zakatable assets because now it's become his personal one. Because the intention is linked to the action, and acts are determined by intentions. Now, recipients, who can you give it to? This is the fun bit. Now we're going to speak about all of those fraudulent fellas who come and take everyone's zakat. The recipients are mentioned in Surah Tawbah, Surah 9, verse 60. Now, you can give to either one of this group, or you can divide it between all of them. Number one, you have to give it to a Muslim. And it's someone who possesses less than the nisab amount, less than the threshold amount. It cannot be equal. Even if they are earning and healthy, i.e. they're a faqir, they're a needy person, you give it to them. You can give it to, and it's more advised for you to give it to your needy siblings, your aunts, uncles, and other relatives. Because I guarantee you right now, either in this country or in a different country, most of us, majority of us, have probably got family who are zakat eligible. But because we know them, because we know that they've got a house or something like that, we turn around and say, oh, no, well, we can't give it to them. We've got a local lady in our village in Pakistan. And I said to my mum and dad, why don't we give the zakat to her? And some of the other relatives turned around and said, well, no, she's got her own house and she's got a cow. So what on earth has that got to do with anything? You can tell they're poor. They've got a battered old house where they've just got, one room and about 5-6 people living there. They've got no kitchen. They cook on the, with the sticks and stuff outside. They've got a cow, but the cow is there to give them milk. And then any extra milk, they sell it to the locals. So just make a little bit of money for like wheat and stuff like that. So what do you mean you can't give it to them? Oh, we thought you can't give it to them because they've got a house. No, having a house is not. For some reason, I don't know if it's in other cultures or customs, but with Pakistanis, because obviously I'm Pakistani, so I can say this. With With Pakistanis, they just think like having a house is a sign of wealth. Having a house is not a sign of wealth. It's not. You know, if you speak to the rich now, to own a house, okay, Raya says the same with Bangladeshis as well. So, you know, if you speak to the rich people, they'll probably say that, you know, you're a fool for owning a house. I'd say you should be rented, you know, so you can move on whenever you need to. So now, instead of saying that it's an asset, they say it's a liability, because most people never even cash out their house. So do you understand? So all of this takes place. So who else can you give it to? You give it to the miskin. These are the destitute, the one who has nothing, not even basic living expenses. You have the gharimin. The gharimin, these are people who are in debt and are unable to pay off that debt. They have the nisab amount, but the debt is far greater. A soldier who has been cut off from his troop. Now remember, this is a soldier who is a Muslim. You can't give it to the British Royal Navy or the IDF or anything like that. It has to be a Muslim. And the soldiers are prepared by the Imam for the jihad. Now, there is no Imam. There is no Imam who's preparing them. So right about now, these people, do they exist or not, you're going to have to establish that for yourself. Then you have the wayfarer. These are those individuals who have nothing left on his journey and they cannot get home. They might have gone to perform pilgrimage and they've been cut off from the group. Now they've been cut off from the group. They spent their money whilst they were there on food and stuff. Now they can't get home. Even if they are rich at home, they have no access to the wealth at the time. You can still give them the zakat. But you need to be very careful, because some people have caught on to this. If you go to Hajj and stuff like that, you'll have them come up to you and they'll say, you know, I came here to do Hajj and I've lost my way and I can't get back to my group and stuff. You know, look, here's my passport, here's my paperwork and stuff. You need to be very careful, because some of them, you know, that they are con artists. So you need to be careful. If you want to be on the safe side, if they do produce paperwork and stuff to show you, you know, you want to give them like a 10 or 20 quid or whatever. If you're able to, then by all means give it. You also have وَالْعَامِلِينَ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ يُهَلْ وَمُلِّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ. We're not going to discuss this, but these are the other categories. You can give food parcels, etc. This is permissible, because these are needs for the poor people that they actually need. So they all have wheat in there, flour, all of these kind of things. So there's nothing wrong with giving them that. Or you can give anything of monetary value. You cannot give to non-Muslims, but you can give them the sadaqah. You can give them charity. You just cannot give them zakat. A wealthy person who has the nisab, right? You cannot give them the zakat. You cannot give it to the Hashimites. You cannot give it to the families of Sayyidina Ali, Al-Abbas, Jafar, Harith, Ibn Abdul Muttalib, the descendants of Hashim ibn Abdul Munaf. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, O Banu Hashim, Allah has prohibited you for you the dirty wash water of the people and their impurity. This is a Gharib hadith, but Muslim relates a similar tradition. Now, what does it mean, the dirty wash water? Because the 2.5% of the zakat that you give is to purify your wealth. And how do you purify something? You remove the impurities. So this is what is being given. So you cannot give it to the Ahlul Bayt. You cannot give it to the Ahlul Bayt. You cannot give it to a parent or a grandparent. You cannot give it to a child or your grandchild. You cannot give it to your wife or your husband. Why? Because you could easily benefit from that yourself. But any other siblings, you can give it to. You cannot give it for a deceased person's shroud. You cannot use it for paying off a deceased person's debt. If you pay to any of the above and you didn't know, i.e. you were deceived or kept in the dark about it, then according to Imam Muhammad and Abu Hanifa, the obligation is lifted. But if you knew that you're giving it to these people, then your obligation is not lifted and you still must give it. Yes.
Deceased person,
Because they're dead.
Like the debt that they pay off.
No, because there's no debt on them now. They're dead. You have to give it to the poor for their benefit. Right? So it has to be for the poor that's going to benefit. This is important now. This is important now. You cannot use zakat money to build a masjid or support a masjid. If it was allowed, Masjid Abu Hanifa would be using and exploiting that. But we tell people straight, you cannot give a zakat. You can give lillah, which is money in the path of Allah, which you will be rewarded for, but you cannot use it to build a mosque. Why? Because zakat is for the poor people, for the destitute. It's not for building fancy madrasas and masjids.
It's a mosque for poor.
It's still a mosque. How are the poor people benefiting from it?
Something to pray.
Doesn't matter. They can pray. The whole world is a masjid. They can pray anywhere. They can pray in their own home. They can pray out in the road. The masjid of the Prophet ﷺ didn't even have a roof on it. Didn't have carpet. It was all earth.
But an orphanage.
An orphanage, right? What they do with the orphanage? Let me get to that. We're just going to speak about that now. You cannot use it for the burial of a deceased, nor paying of the debt of a deceased person. Because, like I said, it is for the benefit of a poor person who can actually benefit from it. So people who come out with these Quran projects and they say we're going to distribute Quran to 2 million odd people and we're zakat eligible, la hawla wa la quwwata. That's not included within this. It's not within there are the recipients of zakat. And these people, like I said, the Prophet ﷺ said on the day of reckoning, the zakat that they're unlawfully taken from people, it will be held over their necks. And how they can comfortably do this is beyond me. But with madrasas, with the orphanages, when you have poor people actually there, in the strict terms of things, and this is what myself and my teachers hold the opinion of, is you cannot even give it to them. You can give them sadaqah, you can give them charity, but zakat has to go directly to the poor person. You cannot say, I'm going to give it to somebody else to hold it on your behalf, or I'm going to hold it on your behalf and I'm going to decide how it's used for you, and I'm going to decide when it's used for you. No, that there's the poor people, the money has to go to them, or whatever monetary value that is being given to them, it has to go actually to them. They have to take possession of it. But what do these madrasas and what do these masjid owners and what do these project Quran distribution owners, how do they make it legal for themselves? Now remember, you have two aspects of everything. You have fatwa, which is the legal side. Then you have taqwa, which is to fear Allah, and it is this spiritual side. Now, what do you do with this? What they do is to make it legal for themselves. They take the wealth, they find a poor person, and they give the money all to a poor person who they've already made an agreement with that we're going to give you all of this wealth. You're going to keep a small proportion of this, and then the rest of it, you're going to gift it back to us now. So now, where far as they're concerned, they have discharged the legal duty of giving the zakat to the poor. Now, the poor person has given them the money back. It is no longer zakat. It is now a gift. And now they use that gift for what they want to do, which is not zakat eligible. Now, legally, they found a loophole, and yeah, legally you're all good. But spiritually, Allah is watching. Allah is watching. You can deceive the creation, you cannot deceive the creator. And you will be held accountable for that. Is disliked, given so much to a poor person that now they own more than the nisab amount, because now they have to give zakat, right? So give them enough so they don't need to ask people for money or for food, etc. You can give or to one of the people, or you can give a little amount to many people. There's nothing wrong with this. If you pay after the completion of the lunar year, then this is disliked. But you have your lifetime to pay, and it will remain a debt upon you. Now, that was zakat. Now we have the other one, which is for the Hanafis only. It's called Sadaqatul Fitr. It's called Fitrana. Every free nisab possessing Muslim, they have to give it. There's no condition for sanity here or to be mature here, to be at a state of pure maturity. There's no condition to own it for a year or for it to grow. You give it from yourself and you give it from your minor child. You have no obligation to give it for your wife or an elder child. They must give it from their own wealth. But if you do give it on behalf of your wife or your elder child, then it's all good, it's discharged. If child is rich, then you give it from their own wealth. If they're not sane, then the guardian gives it. If they are insane, then the person is rich, then you give it from their belongings. Now, how much is it? We used to work off 1.625, but recently I spoke to Qadi Hari, and he said that we need to start working according to 2 kg now, right? So half a sa'a of wheat, flour, and sawiq, which is a mixture of barley and wheat. We now work according to 2 kg. 2 kg. We used to work to 1.625, which used to come to about £4. Now we work according to 2 kg, which comes up to £5. This is why you will probably see that there is a difference in how much the calculated fitrana and the fidya amount is. Or you give the full sa'a of dates and barley, or the monetary value of it. So you can give the half a sa'a of this, or you can give the full sa'a of that, or you can just give the monetary value. It's best to just give the money because the poor people know exactly what their needs are. So you say, okay, here's 2 kg of wheat, and they say, well, I didn't need wheat. You've discharged your duty, but it would be better for you to give them the money because they can use it for what they actually need it for. So the fitrana is £5. This is the same amount for fidya as well. Fidya is the compensatory payment that you give if you're unable to fast permanently, unable to fast per fast. Okay. It's mandatory to give it on entering of Fajr of Eid day, but it's preferable to give it before the prayer. You have your entire life to give it because it remains a debt, but it is disliked to delay it. You can choose to give it early if you want. Now, how early? There's many different views. So some say you can hasten up to the second half of Ramadan, and another view is that you give in the last 10 days. And the purpose of Sadaqatul Fitr, Fitrana, is that it will make it an easy day for those people who are poor to celebrate the day of Eid. So now if you're giving it on the Fajr of the day of Eid, how are you going to get it to the poor people? This is why it's better for you to give it early. Another reason why they say from the spiritual side is that if you have made any unintentional mistakes during the month of Ramadan, this acts as a compensatory payment for that to wipe out any mistakes that you may have made. Who are the recipients of this? The recipients are the same as those people who fall as the recipients of zakat. So you can only give it to those people who you can give zakat to. Yes.
Let's say my day is due on the 27th.
You must make the intention separately that this is for the fidya. Sorry, the fitran and sadaqatul fitr. Yeah, but you can give it to the same person if you want. They don't need to know that. You just have to have the intention yourself. Now, transferal of sadaqatul fitr and zakat. It is disliked to give a recipient the money or the whatever you're giving them, the food parcel, etc., in another land. Right? Repeat that. It's disliked to give it in another land. unless if it is a relative or someone more needy or more pious, or it is more beneficial to the Muslims to give it in another land, then it is not disliked. Otherwise, it's better for you to pay those people who are more closer to you. So starting with your closest relatives, then your neighbors, then those in your locality. So that's it really on zakat and fitrana as well. Yeah. Now with the other schools, they say any jewelry which is worn, there's no zakat on it. But Imam Abu Hanifa doesn't let people get out of that. He's like, no, you gotta pay it. The poor need the money, so give the poor the money. Yeah. So.
And then also,
All poor people should be Hanafi after that. Yeah.
do you get more rewards for giving zakat during Ramadan?
Do you get more reward for giving? Shiru, what are we saying? There's no reward, extra reward, is there?
No. Shouldn't be, because you should be giving all
Yeah,
your
you should be giving it all year round. I mean, there is the claim that good deeds are multiplied in the month of Ramadan. So I think that's why people really try to do it. But think about it, if people are only giving it in the month of Ramadan, the rest of the year people are going to be poor. They're going to be hungry. So it's not really that beneficial.